Hi, welcome to a sad special edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. I literally just got home about an hour ago. I have not seen the news yet, and I just got two text messages, one from my friend Mark and one from my sister saying, hey, did you hear Jeff Beck passed away from bacterial meningitis? I have not heard that. I don't have access to the internet when I'm at work, so this is a shocker, but I always come from pure passion, and I'm a big fan of Jeff Beck, as you can see. So I think this is a good opportunity just to do a quick discography and memorial to the greatness of certainly one of the greatest guitar players in the history of rock and roll, Jeff Beck, the mighty Jeff Beck. Of course, uh, for me, it starts off with Jeff Beck with the Yardbirds. He replaced Eric Clapton, and the first CD I have with him with the Yardbirds is Having a Rave Up, and it's got one of my favorite songs of all time. You want to hear a really good little Jeff Beck lick, you want to hear Heart Full of Soul. But this is a great old Yardbirds album, and there's Jeff right on that side right there, playing his Fender. And the next album he did with the Yardbirds was Roger the Engineer. Here's a British version called Over, Under, Sideways, Down. And you can tell I'm a pretty big Yardbirds fan. Here is the CD version of Roger the Engineer. And great stuff, Over, Under, Sideways, Down, Hot House of Armagarishid, Jeff's Boogie. Just great stuff. Great stuff. Amazing guitar work from Jeff Beck. Later on, Jimmy Page joined the Yardbirds and played very briefly with Jeff Beck in the band, and they did some work on this album called Little Games, which was kind of thrown together. And then Jeff, I believe he actually got fired from the band. But very short-lived, but a great, legendary discography right there of the Yardbirds. There's other collections like the BBC sessions as well that features all three guys. Then he goes on and he does the Jeff Beck Group and releases one of the all-time classic albums with the Jeff Beck Group called Truth. And of course, this album's got Rod Stewart on vocals, Ronnie Wood on bass, and they do two great albums. This one is a classic. I think Jeff, my understanding, always kind of felt a little bit bitter because this is definitely, he felt like a template that Jimmy Page later used for Led Zeppelin. It's certainly Led Zeppelin's debut album is very reminiscent of this. He redid Shapes of Things right there, Yardbirds classic, Beck's Bolero, which he did with Keith Moon and John Paul Jones, if I remember right. Just great stuff. Heavy, bluesy, hard rock. I Ain't Superstitious. This is an essential classic rock album. After that, they did Bicology. Not quite as good as Truth, but real good. Hard rocking album for sure. These are the digitally remastered CDs with bonus tracks. A lot of covers, All Shook Up, Jailhouse Rock. The thing with Jeff Beck, as you'll find, is that he wasn't a great songwriter, that's for sure. But he was such a unique guitar player. I'm not qualified or to say who's the greatest guitar players of all time, but, he's certainly unique. And nobody played like Jeff Beck. Nobody sounded like Jeff Beck. The Jeff Beck group broke up. After that, Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood go on to become the Faces. And Jeff does this amazing album. He did Beck, Bogart, and that piece as well, which I'm not a big fan of. But he did this album, which is one of the all-time classic albums and one of my favorite instrumental rock albums of all time. Blow by Blow. George Martin of Beatles fame did the production on it. It's a tremendous, tremendous album. It's just great. It does a really good cover of She's a Woman, the Beatles classic. But, of course, we've ended as Lovers, dedicated to Roy Buchanan, Freeway Jam. This is just an amazing album, one of my all-time go-to instrumental albums. The follow-up after that is Wired, which is even more jazzier, and you really get into that jazz fusion rock, which was so popular at that time with Mahavishnu Orchestra and other bands. And Jeff really goes to town on here. He does a great Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. Blue Wind is great. This is just another great album. I don't think it's as good as Blow by Blow, but it's pretty phenomenal. And they were two of the most successful albums he ever had, for sure. You know, after that, he did tour and was playing with Jan Hammer, released this live record, which is from that same time period. You know, again, Freeway Jam and Blue Wind and Scatterbrain and She's a Woman. Good live album, not great, but good, you know, from this time period. Took a long break, came back with this album, one of my all-time favorites as well. This is called There and Back, and this is just a killer album. Love this one. Star Cycle, The Pump, El Becco, The Golden Road, The Final Piece. This is a great, great Jeff Beck album. If you don't have a lot of Jeff Beck albums and you don't want to hear like the jazz fusion of like Blow by Blow or Wired, this is a killer one. There and Back. Love that one. You know, after that, his albums get kind of mixed. He just started to try to get a little bit more poppy, a little bit more commercial. Did the album Flash, actually got some vocals on this. You know, Gets Us All in the End was kind of a radio hit, and that's a great, great song. But the real masterpiece on this, and you also find it on Rod Stewart albums, is the version of People Get Ready with Rod Stewart singing. It is, I think, the best thing that Jeff's ever done, believe it or not, with Rod Stewart. It's an amazing, amazing version of People Get Ready. And you find it on the Flash album. You know, he did other things, put out this album, another strong record, Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. Dale Bozio is on drums. And again, hard rockin', instrumental, Tony Hymas on keyboards, and Big Block, Where Are You, Stand On It, great stuff. Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. And then the other one I have, which was really different, was this one, and I really enjoyed this as well. This is Emotion and Commotion. And this is great cover, by the way. This is an album he did with an orchestra. Very different. So Jeff Beck playing with an orchestra, and Joss Stone singing I Put a Spell on You is really good as well. Hammerhead, really good record. And then this is a really good live record. There's a video of it as well, DVD, I think. Jeff Beck performing this week Live at Ronnie Scott's, and playing in a small club. And a really good selection of his history, you know, Beck's Bolero going back to the Jeff Beck group, and of course we've ended as lovers, and he's just kind of touching on big chunks of his career throughout it. This is a great live record. And then if you just want a sample of stuff, there's always like the Best of Beck, a really good tight 14-track collection of a lot of the best stuff that Jeff's ever done. You want to go deeper than that, you got things like the box set, and he was an early adapter to box sets. This was early when box sets were really coming out, you know, the time of Clapton's box, Dylan's first box, and this was Bicology. And this was a 3, looks like a guitar case, so it's kind of cool. You know, in the world of box sets now, it's kind of basic, but you open it up, it's got 3 CDs that spell out Bicology, and it's got a really good, encompassing, you know, whole history, tons of great photos of Jeff playing Fenders, and look at that one. That's a cool shot. Standing on his guitar, playing Fenders, and every once in a while blasting it out with a Gibson Les Paul. And it's got all his various bands, because he always was playing with different people. And a great selection of stuff. This, for me, is all the Beck, Bogart, and Appy stuff that you need, which is in here as well. There's a great version of Superstition. Good stuff, and a really good collection. Of course, Jeff's done other things as well. Why do I have 2 Mick Jagger solo albums? Because, you know, I'm a fan of these albums, no matter what anybody says. And Jeff Beck is all over these 2 Mick Jagger albums, She's the Boss. And he does some killer stuff, does some great licks on Lonely at the Top, and does nice guitar work on the ballad Hard Woman. Even Just Another Night, which has that really nice nylon string acoustic guitar solo. Well, that's Jeff Beck. And even the funkiness of She's the Boss, he's just wailing away. Love that title track, She's the Boss. And that's Jeff Beck all over that thing. And the second Mick Jagger solo album that gets, you know, totally destroyed by the critics is actually still also a good record, except for that single. But, you know, Throw Away, the opening track, Jeff is all over this album. And there's some really, really great licks. Would have been fun if Jeff would have played on that Jagger Japanese-Australian tour, which Mick wanted, but I guess Mick didn't want to pay him what he felt he deserved, so he went with Joe Satriani, who's also an amazing player. But good stuff. Another thing, you really want to, this is cool, you know, there was a short concert tour they did back in 1983 called the Arms Concerts, and that was to a benefit for Ronnie Lane, who was suffering from multiple sclerosis. And they they did a show at the Royal Albert Hall, and this is Madison Square Garden. These are bootleg DVDs, but it was really cool because you had people like Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts playing the drums, but at these concerts, you had all three of the guitar legends from the Yardbirds. You had Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, and Jeff Beck play, and they did their own sets. And it's a really cool way to compare these three guys live at the same show. Pretty much they played the same sets, pretty much. But, you know, Clapton plays so clean and fast and tasty. And you got Jimmy Page, who, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing, but I got a ton of Led Zeppelin bootlegs, and even here, Jimmy Page is like a messy guitar player when he plays live. You know, I always say he hits 20% of the notes and misses 20% of them. But, and then you got Jeff Beck on this, and Jeff Beck is just off the wall amazing, you know, because just nobody sounds like him. And he did Star Cycle and The Pump. This is when that There and Back album came out. It's just kind of interesting. If you could ever find a copy of the Arms concerts, there's your proof right there. You want to see the difference between Clapton and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page. Well, they're all playing live separately at the show. They do play together at the end, but they all play separately, and you can really see the difference. So it's a sad day in rock and roll. We lost Jeff Beck. It's kind of shocking because when I see Jeff Beck, he always looks so healthy and strong and just like a low-key cool guy because he always seemed to be more into his cars than rock and roll. You know, his legendary status, you know, he was just so modest. He was just a great, amazing guitarist, and it was always great to see him and listen to him, but he seemed to be more interested in his cars than bullshit publicity and all the rest. So, goes to show you how deadly bacterial meningitis is. I don't know how he got it, but it's an infection that it can go up your spine or into your head and your brain, and you could die very quickly. And I don't know how long ago he got it, but the only story I saw said he got it just recently and he died very quickly. So it's a tragic story from a guy who I would anticipate was probably very healthy and very strong. Sad day. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Go check out some Jeff Beck. Go listen to People Get Ready. That is just unbelievable performance with Rod Stewart. And I'm going to go have dinner. So I am sorry to bring you this news, but I'm sure you heard it. And I hope this is a little tribute to the greatness of that man, Jeff Beck. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new, we definitely appreciate you hitting subscribe. And check out my other videos. But let's go listen to some Jeff Beck, shall we?